Okay guys, I think I had a few technical difficulties at the end of my last video. So the last part may not be heard, hence why I cut it off here. And now I'm picking up where I should have left off earlier. All right, so we are subtracting fractions with like denominators. Here I have negative 2/3 plus 1 1/3. And I need the answer to have the sign of the one with the greatest absolute value. Remember, my pirates and my ninjas. So I've got more pirates here, so my answer is going to be positive. Here, I've got more pirates because 7 is greater than, the absolute value of 7 is greater than the absolute value of 5. Jonah. Here, I've got more ninjas, so it's going to be negative. Here, I've got more ninjas. And here, I've got more pirates. Okay, so I've got the signs out the way. I'll add those in at the end. So I have negative 2/3 plus 1 1/3. And I'm going to subtract now per the rules. So 1 1/3 minus 2/3. I'm going to take this 1 whole and I'm going to contribute it to this third of a part. So I've got 3/3 here. I'm going to cross out my 1 whole and put 3 out of 3. And then I'm going to add them to the 1. So 3 plus 1 over 3 is 4/3 minus 2/3. And I'll be left with 2/3. Boom, and that's positive. Another way to do something like that would be to just convert my mixed number into an improper fraction by multiplying, then adding. So I multiply my whole number by my denominator, so that's 1 times 10, and then I add the numerator, that's 3. So 3 plus 10 is 13, so this is negative 7/10 plus 13/10. And then I would find a difference here of 13 and 7. So 13 minus 7 is 6/10, and it's going to be positive. And I need to simplify. 6/10 by 2 gives me 3/5. 3/5. And then that's my answer there. All right, coming back here, I'm subtracting 7 minus 5, and my answer will be negative. 7 minus 5 is 2/8. Negative, simplify it. I simplify by 2, so I'm going to have negative 1/4. Here I've got negative 7 and 5, so I'm subtracting 5 and 7. And I'll have 2/12. It'll be negative, and then I'll simplify by 2, and I'll get negative 1/6. Here, 8 minus 4 is 4/9, and it's negative per my rules. Okay, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm done with that part. Toward the bottom, this says I need to find a common denominator because my denominators are unlike now. So find a common denominator, then follow the rules or process or procedures for adding fractions with denominators. Okay, so here my denominator that I have in common of 3 and 6 would be 6 because 6 is a multiple of 6 and 3 is also a multiple of 6. So I'm going to keep the first one plus I'm going to change 2/3 to something out of 6. To get from 3 to 6, I multiply by 2 on the bottom and by 2 on the top. 2 times 2 is 4. So this is 4/6. Okay, I'm going to come back and do the math in a minute. Here, I want common denominators, 4 and 8. The common denominator of 4 and 8 is 8. Jonah, stop. The common denominator of 4 and 8 is 8. So I've got 5/8. I want to keep that. And then I want to turn this into 8s. So in order to get from 4 to 8, I multiply by 2 on the bottom. And whatever I do to the bottom, I must do to the top. So 3 times 2 is 6. So this is negative 6/8. Here, 3 and 12, my common denominator is 12. So the 3/12 changes, minus or plus negative 1. And then my third should be in 12. In order to get from 3 to 12, I multiply by 4 on the bottom. And whatever I do to the bottom, I must do to the top. 2 times 4 is 8. Boom. Negative 1 and 8/12. Okay. Okay, I've got 2 and 5 now. A common denominator of 2 and 5 is going to be 10. I'm just going to multiply these two by each other. So I've got times 5 on the bottom, and I must do the same thing to the top. And over here, I've got times 2 on the bottom, and I must do times 2 on the top. Okay, so 5 times 1 is 5 tenths, and don't forget your negative, plus 8 tenths. There we go. Now let's apply the rules. If I have more pirates, then it's going to be positive. If I have more ninjas, then it's going to be negative. So here, 4 is greater than 1, so this is going to be positive. Here, 6 is greater than 8, so this is going to be negative. 1 whole is clearly greater than 3/12, so this is going to be negative. And then 8 positives over here is going to be greater than 5 negatives, so this will be positive. All right, now I got to do the math. I have to subtract if they have different terms and add different signs, and then add if they have the same sign. All of these problems have different signs, so I'm going to subtract each time. All right, let's do it. 4 minus 1 is 3/6. My camera. 3/6, and it's going to be positive. Okay, so I simplify 3/6 by 3, and I'll get 1/2 because 3 is half of 6. Done. Here, my answer is going to be negative. 6 minus 5 is 1, so negative 1/8. No simplifying necessary because I got a prime number, or 1 is not prime, but I have a number in its lowest terms here and here. All right, this one, I've got to make this a whole, so this is 12 out of 12 plus 8. So 12 plus 8 is going to be 20. So I've got 3/12 plus negative 20/12. Now I find the difference, and my answer is still going to be negative because this is still bigger than 3. And I will end up with, negative 17/12. And then I'll convert. 12 goes into 17 one time, negative 1 time, but there are 5/12 left over. That is my final answer. I will also accept improper. And then lastly, 8 minus 5 is 3/10, and it's going to be positive. Let me check my signs. Positive, negative, negative, positive. 1, 2, 3, 4 answers, and I'm done with this. All right, let's go on to the next part of your notes. Adding rational numbers here. So these are just addition of rational numbers, integers, decimals, fractions with like denominators, and fractions with unlike denominators. We're getting more practice in because we've got to master this skill because we're going to see this skill all year, these skills all year. All right. So I'm just going to do a couple, and then I'll go on to the next part of your notes, which is multiplying and dividing. All right, so here we've got negative 21 plus 13. They're more negatives than they're positives, so my answer is going to be negative here. Here I've got more positives than negatives, so my answer is going to be positive. I'm not going to write a sign, I'm just going to leave it blank, but I know mentally in my head that this should be a positive answer. Here, these are positives and positives, they're going to combine to make a bigger group of positives. Here, these are negatives and negatives, they're going to combine to make a bigger group of negatives. So I'm going to put a negative symbol there to remind myself that this is negative and they have the same sign. Down here, I've got 2 negatives, so I'm going to add them, and their answer is going to be negative. And down here, I got more positives, so my answer is going to be positive. Over here, I've got both negatives, so my answer is going to be negative. Over here, I've got more positives than negatives, so my answer will be positive, no sign. And then here, I've got more negatives than positives, so my answer is going to be negative. All right. So now, I am going to do 21 minus 13. Okay, when they have different signs, I subtract. So same signs, add and keep, different signs, subtract. Same signs, add, different signs. Keep the signs of greater absolute value, then you'll be exact. Multiply or divide, it's an easy pot. Same signs are positive, different signs are not. All right. That was what I taught my 7th graders last year. Okay, the difference here, 21 and 13, the difference between those is 8. The difference here, 25 minus 4 is 21, and it's going to be positive, so I'm just going to leave that answer there. Circle or put a box around your answer so I know that you're done. 18 plus 9 is 27. Negative 15 and negative 14 is negative 29. Negative 13 and negative 15 is negative 18. And then 28 minus 9 is 19. Positive. Here I'm going to add them, 10.7 and 3.5. That's 12. Carry the 1, 4, 1. Negative 14 and 2/10. Don't forget your decimal. Here I'm subtracting 7.6 minus 7.1, 0.5. 0 here is optional. 0 here is also optional. 12.6 minus 8.8. 16, 11, 3.8. Negative 3 and 8/10 there. Okay. And down toward the bottom, I've got negative 6/11 plus negative 5/11. I'm just adding the tops, and they're both negative. So this is negative 11/11, which ends up being negative 1. Okay, 11 over 11 is 1, negative 1. All right, down here, I've got...
Mommy, I made a lot of I made a lot of these paint bottles.
Good job, baby. Oh, I see. All right, so I've got 1 and 3/8 minus 7/8. This is positive and this is negative, so I have more positive, so my answer here is going to be positive. But then I've got to combine this whole. So 8 times 1 is 8 plus 3 is 11. Here's what I just did. Multiply 8 times 1, then add 3. That's 11/8 plus negative 7/8. My answer is going to be positive, then I need to find the difference. 11 minus 7 is 4/8, and then simplify it to be 1/2. That's my answer here. Down here toward the bottom, I've got more negatives than positives, so my answer is going to be negative. 4 minus 3 is negative 1/5. John, shh, please, Mommy's recording the video. Thank you. All right, now I've got unlike denominators. So I've got 3 and 6 here. The common denominator is going to be 6. Negative 1 and 2/3 should have a 6 down here. In order to get from 3 to 6, you multiply by 2 on the bottom. Whatever you do to the bottom, you do to the top. 2 times 2 is 4. So this is negative 1 4/6 plus negative 1/6. We'll talk about signs in a minute. Down here, I've got 8 and 2. The common denominator here is 8 because that's what they both are. That's the multiple that they have in common. 3/8, 1/2. To have an 8 down here, times 4 on top. Whatever I do to the, times 4 on the bottom. Whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top. 1 times 4, negative 4/8. So it's 3/8 plus negative 4/8. And then I'll bring my answer right over here. And then here the 10 and the 5, common denominator here will be 10. So I've got negative 1/5. I want this to be negative something out of 10. In order to get from 5 to 10, I multiply by 2 on the bottom and by 2 on the top. 2 times 1 is 2 plus 7/10 equals whatever. Now let's do more pirates versus ninjas. Here, I've got negative ninjas and negative ninjas. I'm going to combine them. My answer will still be negative. Here, I've got more negative than positive. My answer is going to be negative again. Here, I've got more positive than negative. So the pirates win. My answer will be positive here. So I'm going to add these up. 1, negative 1 and 4/6